Welcome back to Madmen Cross the Water, the adventures of the Sons of Town Hall, tales of daring and danger, of camaraderie and compassion, of hope and humanity.
Madmen cross the water to get from A to B. Madmen cross the water, just you wait and see.
I am Elias B. Worthington, your host, and I hope someday your friend. In our first episode, we told the tale of Josiah and George's redemption and rebirth. We eavesdropped on their momentous meeting. We travelled with them as they escaped their pasts and embarked on their voyage of discovery and self-creation, the likes of which few since biblical times have ever attempted, much less accomplished. Today, we shall return with them to their raft of junk as they headed off to sing for the world. As much as I'd like to say that this second sailing was easier than the first, I cannot. And so, while I'd love to skip over their time where they were once again at the mercy of the sea and meet them back on land, I do believe there is more to be said about how they managed whilst afloat. We will learn of their momentous encounter with the great phantom fish, as our friend Herman Melville once described the particular fabled and feared monster of the deep. I have also acquired a dusty old reel-to-reel machine, and if I can get it to come to life, I might even be able to replay a bit of conversation I was fortunate enough to have with the boys over the years about this particular voyage. And so, pour yourself a hot toddy, and might I suggest you have a pen and pad at the ready, for it is likely you will want to take notes. But before we tuck in, I am very proud to report that I asked for you to write, and lo and behold, you wrote. I have here a letter. After only one episode, I have one letter. Can we call it fan mail? I don't see why we can't. Let's open it together, shall we?
Send in your letters, send in your love, for the attention of Elias B.
Dear Elias, is this project really worthy of all your time and talents?
Oh, criminy now. Well, that's not what I was hoping to hear.
You have so much more to offer the world. Remember when you wanted to become a priest? That was such a noble path. Or what about the law? How about that season you worked as a lamplighter? Oh, that was a steady and important job. Kept people safe at night. Who are the Sons of Town Hall anyway? Never heard of them. Signing off. Troubled, Gertrude.
For heaven's sake, Mother! I'm 47 years old. Let a man breathe. Aye. Never done trying to prove myself. Oh well, despite my mother's concern, I shall not be turned back. Onward, dear listeners, onward.
Send in your letters, send in your love, for the attention of Elias B.
Now then, last episode we covered some of the physical and mental challenges the boys faced crossing the mighty Atlantic. But Josiah and George faced a pickle of a moral test as well. You see, when it came to fishing, it was not merely their lack of natural ability that made them unable to actually catch a fish. It was also that neither believed in the act of killing an innocent creature for simple consumption. Even though they were so often starving, to eat that which once glided so effortlessly and beautifully through the waters seemed a violation of something sacred, an overturning of a real natural order. Watching, for example, a marlin, as big as a brother, writhe and flop helplessly aboard their raft was almost too much for them to witness. And so, for as long as was humanly possible, and then just a little bit longer, they made do with what they had brought on board, primarily hardtack and harder cider. And it wasn't until their hunger overwhelmed them to the extent that they considered eating each other that they stooped to actually try and kill, and then subsequently consume, a fish. I asked them about this when last we were together, set up the old trusty microphone and captured what I could of what they told me. Let me see if I can cue up the reel-to-reel and find the spot.
You might assume we could just fish, but you see, we felt for them, didn't we? You know, truth be told, they seemed our superiors out there.
We didn't want to hurt them, we just wanted to learn from them.
We had no idea what we were doing.
None at all. We didn't know where we were. We'd lost all sense of time and place.
We were starving.
Really so terribly dehydrated.
Chapped.
From head to toe.
Toe to head. But ultimately hunger got the best of us, and I started to dream of eating you.
And yet, on reflection, it makes more sense that I should eat you, given your fuller figure.
The argument ultimately turned philosophic, as most of their late-night debates did, and our beloved protagonists soon came to accept that before they tried to eat each other, surely they could, and indeed should, attempt to eat fish. So, thankfully for us, and the rest of human history, the boys stooped to catch what they could, and they managed to avoid resorting to cannibalism. The old hook and line rarely behaved the way they wanted, though, neither having grown up with a father who taught him how to fish. And so they tried whatever method they could dream up to make a catch, developing some quite unconventional means of attraction. They made a list of what worked best. Let us read a few of their most curious strategies. At sunrise, release
symmetrical streams of urine off port and starboard, then rush to stern and drag bale bucket.
Cast nail clippings in front of prow and then stab repetitively into clippings with dagger.
Dangle the more gaseous man naked from the waist down off the stern. Keep hands open ready to grab at anything that moves.
Rapidly swirl toes counterclockwise whilst other man slaps surface with open palm in a series of staccato pulses, then quickly dip hats into the water and pull up the catch.
Once in a while, a flying fish actually jumped right out of the sea and onto their raft. At first, they were so startled by the slap of the fish beside them that they froze in amazement, and naturally the fish soon jumped right off the other side, only to disappear again. They learned quickly that if ever they heard such a slap again, they must immediately cease whatever they were doing and dive atop the fish, belly to scales, you might say, and hold her down for dear life until they sensed the flicker of the fish's life had gone out.
There were so many things George did that drove me absolutely crazy, but top of the list had to be right when I was in the midst of saying something really important, and right when we were at our lowest in terms of hunger, when I was the most hungry, he would make the exact sound of a fish flopping onto the raft, right when I was in the middle of saying something really important.
It drove him so crazy, because the moment you hear it, you have to act, and he could never tell the difference.
I have no idea how he did it, still don't.
I'll tell you how I did it. I'd wet my hand and slap the underside of my thigh as hard as I could.
I couldn't tell the difference.
And then he'd just belly flop onto the boards, going, "Where are you? Where in Kingdom of Portugal are you?"
Occasionally they bagged a bird as well, seagulls naturally being the variety most readily available. At first they ate the entire bird, feathers, talons, even the beak, learning the hard way that it was not worth the bite.
Presuming you haven't tasted one, you might expect that seagull tastes somewhat like chicken. Nothing could be farther from the truth, and it was such a grave disappointment to us when we bit into that first bird expecting poultry, pheasant, Cornish game hen, the flavor of a duck even, only to find what?
Fish, really strong fish, pungent, fishy fishiness.
Like a tough mollusk.
With wings.
What was good, however, were the eggs. And George had what was possibly his most brilliant idea, which was that if we could cultivate the trust of the bird, we could actually get the seagull to nest on our raft.
And by creating this safe space, within a matter of weeks, we had a dozen beautiful seagull eggs.
So, they ate what they needed to eat to stay alive, with less and less moral conflict. But they never understood or accepted those who chased and caught fish for money. George and Josiah would pass vessels, or rather vessels would pass them, with great nets and lines, hauling in a catch that could last the boys a year or more. The fishermen showed no respect or reverence for their bounty. They were wasteful and careless. They killed creatures in their nets that they then just cast off as if they were cigarette butts. The fishermen were rough and weathered, a different breed of man, and they looked in confusion and condescension and even contempt upon the motley, floating raft of junk and its battered and behatted crew of 2.
Unfortunately, we were passed by another trawler today. It was even more embarrassing than the last time, for they came upon us whilst we were singing. The men were so mean.
They whistled and jeered, hurling profanities and rude remarks at us. I'd rather not repeat them. But suffice to say, they insulted our vessel, our dress, our hats, our facial hair, our musculature, our masculinity. Thought they might even try to board our raft and that, well, we might have another episode like we had last February.
I was asked not to mention that February episode, and so out of respect for our protagonists, particularly Josiah, I will not betray their confidence. But I will say that according to the lads, the worst of all the seamen by far were the sperm whalers. The boys developed a holy reverence for the great and gentle giants of the deep, and they despised those barbarians who hunted them for their blubber. If ever they passed a vessel chasing whales with their harpoons flashing in the sun, they did everything they could to distract, divert, and disrupt.
Remember when we thought the whalers were more like us than the fishermen?
Well, they sang. That was about the only similarity.
You'd hear them coming sometimes before you'd see them. One crew had this song they sang, this Oda-lee line, said it was a song that their fathers had taught them.
But the more time they spent with the whales, the less they understood how anyone could kill one. Listen to the reverence here in the log, dated the 3rd of April in that same year.
Floated among a pod of humpbacks for most of the day today. They breached and sounded. They sprayed us with their great exhale. We heard their song as well. They sing in a kind of harmony, though certainly not of a western scale.
It was the first time we removed our hats in the waking hours thus far on the journey, as we felt the need to pay tribute to these magnificent creatures. We attempted to sing along. If ever we can afford another man, I said to George, it would be nice to have a whale or two in the group.
So, it came to be that not only did our heroes seek out and protect the whales, but the whales often sought out the sons of Town Hall. For months, George and Josiah acted as a sort of overwater escort. It was a beautiful symbiosis, the whales teaching the boys their songs and the boys offering what they could in the way of protection. Not always knowing whose side they were on initially, whaling ships approached the raft to ask for counsel. The boys showed an almost mystical confidence and so earned a bit of a reputation as whale whisperers. "Have you seen any farties?" they'd ask. "Any spouts lately? How's the fishing where you've come from?" Well, without fail, the boys sent each and every boat off in the dead wrong direction.
You remember when we met the captain?
What a character he was, like a captain of that strange ghost ship.
It was like that ship was always shrouded in mists every time we saw it.
So misty. We thought we were dreaming. Something seemed very strange about that ship whenever we saw it.
Near the Azores,
By Barbados,
off the coast of Newfoundland,
always shrouded in the thickest of mists.
always misty.
And that's where we were, when that awful, toothless, bearded, barrel-chested, one-legged captain lowered himself from his ship into an open oarboat and rowed himself over to our raft.
His eyes were wild, crazy eyes. That's what I remember the most. Well, that and that his breath reeked of whiskey and brine.
He seemed almost to be like a part of the sea himself.
"Seen the white whale?"
He'd ask us, even before a hello or any kind of introduction.
I found his mannerisms most discourteous and said so.
"Seen the white whale, I ask?"
He just asked it again. "The which?" I asked him.
"The white whale!"
He said again. Like there could be nothing else worth looking for on God's great earth.
I need to find the beast. She's taken my arrows. She's taken down ships. She even took the sling of mine. But she lives still. Still she swims. They knew not of this white whale that so possessed the hardened man, and so they sent him back from whence he came. He was a whaler of the worst kind. They didn't forget him. You don't forget a man like that. He was a captain for whom they'd certainly mutiny. They thought a lot about that obsessed captain, and they thought about that whale he doggedly pursued. Could they find this great phantom of the sea before this madman and his crew did? Was she as bad as he let on? Could they divert her? Could they warn her? So the boys began asking after the white whale. Whenever they were among friendly seamen, they asked and thus were told one story after another of the wreck she'd made of vessel after vessel, of the countless men who sunk to their watery graves, of the fear she engendered in every mortal man who laid an eye on her. The picture painted was a horrifying one.
Her colourless flesh, her seemingly endless length, her enormous, unfeeling black eyes, her limitless strength, like the sea itself, she was said to be unstoppable. And the scars, not a foot of her skin was void of the marks of man. They said she'd been hunted for decades, that she'd sustained hundreds of harpoons, maybe thousands, that some were dangling from her still. She was older than time itself, they said, bearing the marks of the very first of the Aboriginal whalers.
And still Josiah and George pursued her, knowing that whales were not born with hate in their bellies. It was not the whale who was ever initially to blame. Chased as she was across the world and back, her mates and perhaps even her babies massacred. How could you blame the whale? There were many days when they thought they might have spotted her, only to learn it was just a giant squid or a whale shark, a reflection of the sun or the moon. But then one day, sure as the judgment of Athena, there she was.
The sea was unusually clear that day. It was as if you could see some 40 fathoms deep.
It was so still. There was no wind, no bird, barely a ripple. Days like those don't come often. And when they do, you let your guard down a little. You maybe take a swim.
You relax, you take your boots off, you dip your feet in, and that's just what we were doing when we saw her.
Almost directly below us, she appeared like a blank spot in the deep sea, like a void. She rolled then on her side and stared up at us with her one giant eye.
We were frozen there. It seemed time just stopped. I don't know how long the three of us stared at each other, but, well, it almost seemed like there was a kind of understanding.
And then she rose. At first, we thought she'd bust through the raft itself.
She came up maybe an anchor chain length off the starboard side, and suddenly all we could see was whale.
White whale. A living expanse bigger than we could have dreamt, even after all we'd heard. It was like a dinosaur from the great past had returned.
A creature who could have bore Poseidon himself.
She shot up and clear out of the ocean and did a half spin before laying her backside down onto the smooth glass surface of the sea.
The sound was deafening, and the wake she caused, well, it nearly capsized our raft.
We were both immediately catapulted up and over the port side.
Probably a quarter nautical mile away from our craft we flew, and, well, given all we had heard, we were sure that would be the end. We were still in our coats and scarves, and everything got heavy really quickly. Our garments tangled in such a way it was quite difficult to swim.
And we weren't great swimmers to begin with.
In my memory, somehow, though, our hats stayed on.
But our coats got quickly waterlogged, and we swallowed a great amount of the sea as we gasped in fear upon entry.
We lost all sense of which way was up. Basically, we were drowning.
We were done for.
Tumbling deeper and deeper.
What happened next is one of the great, as of yet untold tales of the sea. For just when they had given up hope, relinquished the fight, as they were making their descending peace with their Maker, they were caught, held, suspended. The gears of time temporarily froze, and then they were lifted, lightly, smoothly, swiftly. They rose up and up and up, back to the surface. And then through the surface, they alighted. The boys were too bewildered to know what was happening or who was responsible for their rescue. But when they broke the skin of the ocean and they could suddenly see their savior, she was gleaming like a goddess.
Her back was white and wide and covered in battle wounds. And there was that ancient winking blowhole. There her great glimmering eyes. There she was, the beautiful underdog, hunted by hundreds, relentlessly pursued but persisting still, as old as the world herself, bearing the sins, the scars, and the shame of humanity.
Our coats were still on, our scarves still over our shoulders, even our hats remained on our heads. We looked at each other in utter bewilderment, and then we kissed the boards of our boat and we took 2 knees. We tipped our hats to the great white whale, and we sang out in gratitude.
She slid sideways, effortlessly, gracefully really, and laid them back aboard their raft, as simple as if setting grandmother's teacups on a lace tablecloth. And just like that, the boys were back, as if the whole episode had never happened. And she let out a song as well, as she slowly sunk back down beneath the surface, the most sublime tone their ears had ever heard, or would ever hear. It was the sound of suffering. It was the sound of endurance. It was the sound of the sea. And it was a sound that would remain deep in the heart of every note the boys would sing from that day forward.
Whalebone, oil and flame in celebration, taking aim, then steering on. Whalebone, ours to wait in expectation, just to hear his song once more.
With that, my friends, I believe it fitting to end today's riveting installment. I've been your host, Elias B. Worthington. Thank you, as always, for listening. Keep those letters coming. Well, not you, Mother. And join us next time as we catch up with the boys back on dry land. Links to the Sons of Town Hall website and social media can be found in the episode description.
To support Madmen Cross the Water, go to patreon.com/Sons of Town Hall.